What up? Welcome back to the pod. Y'all are just checking in with your two favorite people on the internet, or really by audio, because I realize not everybody watches on YouTube, and we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So we are your two favorite people wherever you hear our voices. But it is yours truly, everybody's favorite uncle, Uncle Don Don in the flesh or the ear. Joined by my virtual audio half, my good brother Paul, aka.
Mr. Qualifier, how y'all doing? How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing all right, because I'm barely holding on. Joking. Kind of not really, but hope y'all doing well.
I'm not joking. I'm not even holding on. Somebody holding on to me.
Sure. Hey, man, look, definitely busy, definitely a lot going on. Yeah, it's just been nonstop. But yeah, why you got somebody holding on to you? What happened to your strength?
Katy Perry once said, "You ever felt like a plastic bag floating through the wind?" I'm more of a kite, right? The wind got me. Somebody holding me down though, but the wind got me. At least I know my next week is slower because I've not talked to this many people consistently in a long time. I get off work and I'll be out of breath. I'll be out of energy. I'm like, and I'm primarily working from home, so I'm only talking to a computer. It's like a podcast, a new podcast every hour.
I'm crying. Nah, that's a good analogy. Like, yeah, like when I actually have to decompress, I'm like, oh, huh, I work today. I actually need a few minutes to like not do nothing or like doom scroll or like, just get my mind clear from being focused. And sometimes it's been hard to be focused too. I think that's more so what's kind of made things difficult is when I hit those kind of like those stretches where it's like really hard for me to lock in, focus, whatever the case may be. Like I bounce back and I respond to it well, but
Mhm.
there's just still like a throw off of kind of maybe not routine, but just kind of realizing like, yo, if I wasn't able to focus or lock in this day, that just leaves everything for the next day. So yeah, I can get to it and ultimately work my way back, but I'm just, creating a mountain to climb, so to say. So, trying to be better with that, but also realizing that just comes in stints as well. But yeah, I guess this is real adulthood. I didn't know adults this is how a real adult work and this is how real adults feel after work. Everything makes sense. Yeah, the food needs to be sitting in the sink, thawed out. Yeah, the trash need to be taken out. Yeah, come in, do that homework because I need an hour. So go be busy. But
Yeah,
but
it blows my mind every day that I have breath that people do this with kids. What?
yeah.
Ah!
And there's and I mean we've talked about this multiple times before, and I get it. Like when people, the older I get, when people say like, yeah, they not for me, like I understand it. And I think even for people that say it's for them, I think we gotta wait to see till you get one to know if you actually serious or not. But yeah, it ain't for the weak. I can only imagine. It is not yeah, it's not for the week. That kind of segues into something that I wanted us to talk about. That kind of just deals with the different generations and like the generational gaps. Um, I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were just kind of talking about mentors and kind of talking about the difference in how generations just kind of go about things, but then also how that looks specifically in like our race or specifically for black people. Because I would say the millennials as a generation, I think at least at least in conversation to me it always made sense, but like I feel like we were truly the bridge. Like we have enough influence from the generation prior, and we were able to see the transition of other generations to where we can truly bridge both sides. And with that, I also think that us as a generation, I don't think millennials gatekeep. Now Gen X, like boomers, from a general standpoint, I think a lot of things that they've earned, a lot of things that they have learned and attained, I feel like we've seen them more so gatekeep it or make it seem like we have to, younger generations have to earn it. the way they did because it was harder for them than it may be for us just with how things have evolved over time. But conversation can go a lot of different ways, so we can, kind of, tailor however we want. But just kind of your thoughts on that, generation gap, and I guess more specifically in regards to like us as a people, how you feel like it looks different, or maybe what's the biggest thing you've noticed in regard to maybe some of those generational gaps, specifically Gen X, like us as millennials, and then Gen Z, because that's a whole nother thing in and of itself.
Yeah, and it's funny. I do think we are the bridge generation, being millennials, but I think Gen Alpha is going to be similar to us.
I
Now,
agree.
Alpha is after
Z.
Gen Z, and I mean, I love them because they're here, but Gen Z, Gen Z is at that tipping point. They either gonna make the world better or they just gonna rip it to shreds, and I'm confident that both can happen.
Two things can be true.
Right, the two things can be true, but I think once we get into Gen Alpha, it's going to be so much that has shifted from where we had with millennials that they will now experience this like old world, and we will be the boomers to them. Because sadly, we were born in the late 1900s, so to them, we were just slaves. Slaves or pilgrims, like those are the only only two options that we have.
You're on a heater today. You're on a heater. This is crazy.
They will see us as so historically like relevant. We've seen so much in real time that it's just become norms to us. But I don't know. I think it'll be a little different path of like experience and knowledge and stuff because I mean, the ones before us ain't really have the internet or social media and the things that we have access to now. So we all experience it in the same way, but boomers, not to generalize, but it was so much of the world changed, so much of America that was being created
Mm,
that they were picking stuff up as they went and just held it close to them.
yeah.
So like, and I'm gonna have to fact check this, but my mama said she remembered, I remember her telling me she remembered when microwaves came out. And I was thinking like, that's not a thing. Microwaves have always been out, but I mean, we call it a refrigerator, but like I grew up calling it icebox because we was getting ice block deliveries to put in the Frigidaire, right? The milkman was coming by. Now we just going to the store and picking it up. So it's like a completely different way of living. So like, my mama just in the last few like 5 years or so really got into the emoji game. And I'm thinking like everybody has emojis. But no, like so it's a completely different way of living. And I feel like we are the bridge and then Gen Z is going to, do something, but we'll we'll see ourselves mirrored more, I think, in Gen Alpha.
I can agree with that. And I think something that also stood out to me about us as millennials is that with us being the bridge, I also think we are currently, for the most part, a very accepting generation. I think we saw a lot of evolution in things that have been considered taboo and things that were frowned upon. We've seen through time that become more accepted, promoted more, marketed more. Like I think the best example to put that into context would have to be like LGBTQ, right? So she should be okay with this. I think she'll be fine. Love Rita down. Y'all know. But it mentally, like it's an adjustment for her. She was never judgmental about anything. And I say that like because my sister is a part of the community, right? So it was never a judge. She was never judgmental, but there was this aspect of her like trying to understand because
Mhm.
for like that generation, like they don't get it. Like they don't like that's not whether it's the religious way and like that's not what the Bible says, or whether they just don't get past the fact that well that was considered taboo or something was wrong with you if you did that or you was just so used to hiding it like mentally it's something that there's an adjustment that has to be made. And I think about myself and I'm like it's, when I was younger, like yeah, you know when you growing up and especially as men, right? Like it's frowned upon early and it's talked about in a particular way. But I also feel like I grew up seeing enough and hearing enough and just being in an era and in a generation where it was becoming more, I don't want to like not popular, that's not what I'm saying. It was becoming more common and more outwardly shown that it's normal to me. Like it's not something I have to adjust my mindset to because I've always seen it. And I've seen it at the most like, exaggerative levels of it. And I just think that has allowed us to be able to have the tools to accept it. Some people choose not to utilize those tools. That's on them. Yeah. But we've had the tools to be able to accept it and understand that it don't change the way we should be looking at anybody. And to the point about Gen Alpha, I think for whatever reason, I don't know what happened with Gen Z. Maybe that 2000s time was very interesting, so maybe the time they was coming up really influenced them. But I think that Gen Alpha is in a position to see a lot more evolution and transition to where I could definitely see us having parallel experiences as generations. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison if you're talking about the LGBTQ community because they've existed since the beginning of time.
Right.
But that's not been something that has been publicly accepted. If you're looking for a recommendation, shout out to Netflix for Boots.
Hmm.
The series. It's a short series made on the made from the book The Pink Marine, I think is what it is. But anyway, real quick, it takes place in 1990 about 18-year-old closeted Marine cadet recruit, whatever they call themselves. And this is before like, during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it was literally illegal to be queer in the military. I watched it recently. It's actually really good. I didn't know about the first episode, but then after that, it was really well written. But thinking about that, thinking about women in the military, my mom was also in the military, right? Thinking about how all of the 90s kind of shaped that into, I mean, yeah, we were millennials unnamed at the time, but you fast forward now, how everything is so much different in the like evolved kind of way. You
Yeah.
know, even hair standards in the military, like something like that has completely changed. So Gen Z, Gen Alpha is going to see the world completely different after us. But fact checking myself, microwaves, according to Google, were invented in 1945. My mama was born 1954, but it also says that microwaves weren't common in household homes. That's the same thing. They weren't in the crib until like the 70s, which makes sense why she says, "Oh, well, I remember when these came out." So it's the point is like there are things that happen in life that evolve your understanding of things. So if you were warming something up, you either had a brick oven or you had, gas stove, coal stove, fireplace, or whatever. It was very domestically rustic, if you will, right?
Crazy.
Now we have air fryers.
Right.
We have got to look like aliens to 80-year-olds. I know we
Like, what is this? It's
very, very that. So it's okay to grow with the world. If you allow yourself to accept change as something that is going to happen, and you'll be fine.
yeah. I started laughing because you was talking about I remember when these came out, she talked about microwaves like they knew Jordans, and that got me so weak.
No, for real. She told me that like 10 years ago. It's been some time since we had this conversation. But I was just thinking like microwaves, everybody's had microwave, but nah, technology changed. Hell, we didn't have streetlights at one point, you know?
Ah, that's
They,
crazy.
they was just out here double dutching at intersections trying to get through and not crash on site. Like what? Like,
What's wrong with you today, man?
your turn, my turn. We just
Oh,
horse and buggy all the way through.
no, that's crazy because dang, that mean I don't think Gen Z or Gen Alpha is gonna have that experience of like, having to get home before the street lights. Come on, you know what I'm saying? Like they just not even gonna have like all them things that feel like that's life to us as we know it. Like they won't have it. Yeah. Siri gonna have an actual name by the time Gen Alpha are adults. It's gonna be
It's gonna,
gonna be Cyrus.
I was just screaming. Siri for Gen Z, by that time, it's gonna be the holographic Tupac at that point. Like
Nah, you on one today. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's a
it's
crazy pull.
it is going to be something different. Like our parents didn't have our location growing up. Our location was the street light coming on and we was on the porch. Like that was it. So
Facts. That is crazy. We talking about generations and whatnot. Are you a fan of nepotism? Or are you part of that fan club?
no, because I ain't benefited from it. But I mean
I
if
not your personal experience, sorry, but like as a general practice, are you a fan of it, or is it still no?
Um, the nepotism has its benefits. That's not a word. Blind nepotism. There we go. That I don't like. Oh, because you were my child, or because I know you here. Come on and just bring on. I feel like nepotism is like it has nuanced gatekeeping, or it should be nuanced gatekeeping, but instead it's like, oh, I know you come here. Thanks. I appreciate that people are creating opportunities that way, but I still believe in like objective shit. I mean stuff, excuse me. But I don't know. I don't like it because I ain't benefited from it. I don't know enough people in high places. Hell, I don't even know enough people in mid places, okay? Everybody
True.
I know in my place.
No, that's facts. And I mean, I think about like mentors though, right? Like, so the idea of nepotism solely from the standpoint of like to your point of, oh, I know you or you're my family. I I can't say I dislike it, especially as black people, because other races have benefited from it and been doing it for years. So I'm not, if that was to be happening like with a black family and it's still like generating black success, I'm not mad at that. But I outside of the family aspect though, I agree that that nuanced gatekeeping is probably like the best way to put it, because if I'm in a position to bring somebody else up, it doesn't mean it's solely happening because you look like me. Or
Mhm.
even if we speak about it like in terms of alpha, like yeah, I would love to like, because like you're a part of that organization, have a connection and feel like you are worthy. But at the same time, if you aren't for one reason or another, and that don't mean that you're a bad person, you just might not be a good fit, but it doesn't mean that solely because of that connection you get this opportunity. However, I would love to be in a position to say, hey, okay, we have this connection. You do XYZ. Knowing me may help you actually get this connection. So, boom, now you got this opportunity. That type of nepotism I'm a fan of.
Well, to me, that's networking. I wouldn't say that that's networking.
Mm,
I think it's a difference there. Like my network, so mentor, one of my favorite quotes I live by, mentor told me this years ago, contacts get contracts. Or it was phrased a little differently, but t turn your contacts into contracts is what it was. So I believe in the network, right? So I'm going to make sure I'm rubbing elbows with whoever I can, and I think there will be something to benefit from that in some way. I'm not looking for a handout by any means, but that's going to be my network because we just got to rely on each other. But the nepotism thing, yeah, I'll go with the alpha example, right? I'll be the first one to admit I have an alpha bias. Every time I have an alpha bias and I have a Chicago bias. If I meet an alpha or if I meet somebody from Chicago, I'm going to automatically like you a little bit more than I like everybody else. So that will get you in the door,
yeah,
but it's not going to get you over the finish line with me because even in that, I want to know you quality, you know? So when you talk about the nepotism and like culturally within, black families or whatever, I get it. but that we also still are training that person or grooming that person or rearing that person to be of quality.
Yeah.
So our nepotism won't be uh challenged
Yeah.
because our less pigmented siblings in the world, they have just, oh, hey, come on, you do this, and yeah, you kind of make it, and it's fine. But we say, oh, come on, you do this, I'm gonna bring my own in, but I'm also gonna give you all the tools you need. So my bias is gonna get you in the door, but your skill set is gonna be what pushes me over.
Yeah, no, that's real. And I like that because I do think there's a huge difference in networking and nepotism. And maybe that's the thing too, because maybe nepotism solely can only really be looked at conceptually, like within the family context, because in essence, that's part of the definition. Um, but I think it still applies generally to that idea of how things work within the race and just going back to like the gatekeeping, aspect as well. But I do really like your point about we aren't giving you an opportunity just to say you have the opportunity and not care about what happens. Like we want you to have this opportunity because we want to see that growth. So we're going to also invest in your development. So like there might be things that jumpstart your journey a little bit. You might be able to, get through a couple hurdles out the gate per se, but there's still going to be hurdles and I'm still interested in developing, you or I've always been appreciative of somebody who's been interested in my development in regard to like not just giving you an opportunity to fail because you're not prepared, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So definitely agree with that. But it's interesting as we check out, I think at least what I found is consistently, figuring out like, okay, like I'm influenced by my mom's generation, right? So like I'm influenced by that. Then I'm naturally influenced by because mom, I think technically she's a boomer, yeah. But then there are other influencers of like other influences from Gen X, just from like the pop culture that I've like seen and went through myself. Then there's the influence of my actual generation. And then there's also the influence of the generations like after me, right? That's still influencing me to today. And within all of that, like whether it's in that like generation context or whether it's in this like kind of like busy, just like on the move context, I don't know how often we've talked about being still, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's very layered and it's something that I find myself being more intrigued by as I get older. But what does it mean to you to be still? Because I don't even think I had the capacity to answer that question for myself until recently to truly kind of like understand stillness. So I'm curious if it means something in particular to you or looks a particular way.
The healed part of me says to be still is to be content and at peace. But the real part of me says to be still is stuck and stagnant. And I can't be stuck and stagnant. So I don't know how to be still. I still like move around and do something. I need to feel some progression in what I'm doing, even if it's not like incremental. I mean, like massive growth. If it's just incremental to know that I like at least move to the side a little bit or something. So being still. And yeah, I know there's power in that and all of that good stuff. But if for me, I'm just saying this on my perspective. If I'm still, I feel like I'm stuck, I feel like I'm stagnant, I feel like I ain't moving, I feel like I ain't doing nothing. So I don't know how to do that. But I have FOMO, right? So when you talk about like being a sponge for all of these generations around you and including the ones that are coming after us, I try to get as much from everybody because I grew up from like the silent generation of literally the early 1900s to now having a niece and nephew, part-time kids that are Gen Z. I don't want to miss out on nothing, so I'm pulling everything from everybody so I can be just relevant enough, just knowledgeable enough to get by so I'm not still.
That's real. And that's a really interesting perspective. I feel like I've always associated being still with this idea of not trying to control everything, which I still think is true, because of course, two things can be true. But I do find it interesting in the way you put it that I think with the stillness does come an aspect of like it's one thing to not try to control everything, but it's also another thing to just kind of like let things happen and hope that it works out. Now, to be clear, for all of y'all that are Bible thumpers, I'm not saying that you can't put things in God's hand. It's not what I'm saying. However, I'm just saying that like I really agree with your point. I feel like that kind of presents a duality that I have with it where I don't want to try to control everything, but I also don't want to feel like I'm just letting things happen, which is why I feel like it was always so hard for me to define what being still was, understand what being still was. Because also, whether it's FOMO or whether it's just you being a person that is comfortable kind of like navigating your emotions outwardly and expressively. Like I think a lot of people see people get overwhelmed and frustrated and they say be still because they think that you want to be calm. And it's like, nah, like I don't mind feeling these emotions because for me they're not there's a difference in like being overwhelmed and like being frustrated because something isn't like going my way. Like, cause I can still control things to change it, whether I'm frustrated or overwhelmed. And if it's something I can't control, then it's just something I can't control. But those are all different layers of like, not sure of what exactly, but there are different approaches to those things. But now that's a really good perspective on, especially outside of the religious context, on how being still can feel more stuck and complacent than it is the idea that it's you being content and understanding that you don't have to control everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have been on both sides of this conversation, and hell, I am still on both sides of this conversation. But yeah, I can be planted somewhere, which obviously is just another word for being still, and let the world orbit around me so I'm the epicenter of what's going on. But I still have an aspect of like puppeteering, at least I can see it moving and shaking around me. So yeah, but I'd rather not be still. Probably why I'm always overstimulated, but next time's conversation.
But yeah, no, that was a good one, man. Checkout was good. I think the entire conversation was good. You was on a roll, so I know people was gonna be laughing throughout this entire episode, whether you seeing us or whether you hearing us. This man was on the heater today. So a lot of quotables, a lot of takeaways. And yeah, more checking in as we typically do. But until then, until the next time you either see us on your screens or you hear our voices in your ears. We'll catch y'all on the next episode. Peace.